Hello humans! Today's project is silicon, the element I have assigned to the concept of order for various reasons, which we shall explore, if I can stay on topic for once. As you can see, silicon sits directly under carbon in the table, and as we all know, columns share properties. It helps me in my animistic way to think of silicon as carbon's younger brother, because it has not been a known element for as long. It was first isolated in 1823, whereas carbon is one of the known since prehistory elements, and because they both are capable of forming long, stable chains. My vision for this character was an almost Egyptian composition with the figure in profile, and he is painting, in a stylized way, a microchip. Because of course, what we all think of if someone says silicon is technology. I did some research and dug up this image of the very first microchip ever printed on silicon. It's so cool! And then I tried to freehand copy it. Witness the hilarity. We'll get back to that, and I'll bring the reference photo back when we do so you can see what it is I'm aiming for. In the meantime, there's a fair amount of science fiction speculation about silicon-based life forms, which is awesome. If you really want to see that concept used in world building, go read some Discworld, which is by Terry Pratchett. It's fantasy satire, but it's so incisive and observant and frankly genius. The trolls on the disc are silicon-based life forms, and they get smarter at colder temperatures. They eat rocks. Their teeth are diamonds. It's so great. Back to the chip. I was definitely climbing a waterfall here. While I struggle, please remember to not get attached to anything you're seeing. Let me add that this was not the first microchip ever, because that one was printed on germanium, a fact I found while doing research before I started the painting, but can't seem to find now while making this video. Never mind. Let's just focus on the fact that this one here is very important historically, and most of all that it was invented in 1959 by Robert Noyce, because causality wants to make us smile. Oh, this is sad to watch. I enjoy life drawing, following the form and contours of what I see, but this little circuit is very geometric and unforgiving when it comes to how much space should I leave between bars and how long is this section before it turns at a right angle. I was never any good at cars and such either. Although I did live in Paonia for some time, where there's the Top of the Rockies BMW bike rally. I lived half a block from the city park where the bikes would gather, and I'd go over there with a sketchbook and draw what I saw, as practice, an art challenge, as it were, to see if I could make them look accurate. Sometimes, not often, the specific owner of the bike I was drawing would come over and ask to buy the picture. One of them asked me to mail it to him so it didn't get crumpled in his journeys, and I said sure, and I took the $20 I was willing to charge, and I immediately lost his address, like an idiot. But don't worry, he came back in later years, and we reconnected, and I finally got it in the mail. 5 years too late. But when? Here we're coming to the end of my patience with this method. I'm definitely the person who beats a dead horse. Gods, what an awful phrase. But this is me deciding on a different course. I opted to do the same freehanding technique, but on tracing paper with a pencil so I could erase and redraw all I wanted. Then I realized I hadn't been filming any of it. The texture I'm trying out in this background is sorta kinda papyrus. Am I the only one who was really bummed in the early noughties when the papyrus font got so popular? I loved it, but when I started seeing it everywhere, including on tubes of Desitin and whatnot, I realized the word basic wasn't in play then, but if it had been. Anywho, here is a demonstration of how I used the drawing to do a rubbing onto the canvas. Good showmanship, yeah? I may have chosen a hieroglyphic style for this piece as a subconscious nod to the fact that Egypt is largely desert, and deserts are largely silicon. Most of our natural state silicon is tied up in silicates, which is your platonic rock, like all of the rocks, and sand, and Portland cement, and mortar, and mountains, and crystals, and glass. I could have drawn him perched on a heap of semi-precious stones, and it would have been a fair representation of his pre-technology forms. But I didn't. He's sitting on... You'll see. I'm always startled by how much easier my life is when I go to the trouble of pre-planning, or, as in this case, creating a template. Still learning that lesson. This whole project has given me ample opportunity to forge some good prep habits. I'd have given up at boron if I'd been trying to freeball this Goliath. But I had the useful idea to take an empty sketchbook and draw the table on the first page, then number the pages front and back 1 through 118, then draw a card mock-up in the middle of each page with space on the left for the results of my research, space on the right for intuitive brainstorming. Future art historians will love me for so lucidly detailing my creative process. Or they'll be like, well, her paintings were okay, but her sketches were garbage. It's funny how many layers were in that little integrated circuit there. And it's funny to think how much wee tiny patterns like that changed the world so completely. Pure silicon has a very smooth, flat surface which allows brilliant people to play with the limitations of literally microscopic circuitry. It boggles the mind. And while it's clearly not my strong suit artistically, it was very satisfying to paint this thing and get it right. I left the bottom unfinished since that's what our friend here is still working on, but here's the background circle to make it look tidy. Love a good compass. Futzing around with details at this point, like we do. Getting started on the seating, but we're not quite there yet. Doodly-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Doom, 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 doom. And then there is the face. I wanted to keep his expression simple and passive, and it took a while for me to dial that in because it turns out it's really easy to accidentally paint a Vulcan, which was not the idea. Or was it? No, not really. Elf, sure. Are Vulcans space elves? Has that been discussed? That'll be a fun rabbit hole to fall down one of these days. I realize that the goatee makes him look sinister, and I'm sure there's a comic book villain he resembles, but I can't recall who. Leave a comment if you know. And yes, he is left-handed, and I am left-handed. I did that because it makes a better composition. But also because I always feel better when I see lefties in art and media. Mariah Elizabeth is left-handed, and it makes me love her more. She's on YouTube. Go watch her next. She's adorbs. What do we think of that hair? I would love to cite reasons for painting it that way beyond, that's just what I saw in my head, because I feel like that excuse wears thin, even if it's 100% true. I like that the hair is one more way to set him apart from all the others. He looks a bit Hare Krishna and a bit warrior monk, and I just can't see him with floppy anime hair, can you? It's just so not him. And it's detail futzing time again. Doop-a-doop-a-doop. Blah blah blah. The color of his robe took me a minute to figure out. When I choose gray, it's not at random. I decided to make that a feature of the elements in this column. So carbon and silicon, germanium, tin, and lead are all wearing gray. I actually forgot to do that with fluorovium, but I hope that's okay, because he looks so cool as he is, and anyway, the bastards in that section don't have known chemical properties, so yeah. I am very lucky that I have a life mate who pays all the bills so I can pursue impossible dreams like making an oracle deck out of 118 custom-created characters designed to represent the elements. Also, I get to sleep in every morning. I've always hoped his sacrifice turns out to be an investment, you know? Like, I'll get rich and famous, and he can stop working, and he can spend every day doing something he loves. It seems unlikely that I'll get there. I'm already 40. But since I apparently had cancer for the majority of my 30s, maybe I get to have a decade do-over. Yeah? Ah, it's time for the stool of awesomeness. Guess what I found in a Google search? This gorgeous silicon skeleton of the sea sponge creature. It looks perfect, and it's one of the few organic silicon items I could find, and it's just the right shape for sitting on. Granted, it turns out to be a creature only about 4 inches long, but come on. None of these are in a specific scale. Things are wonky. We accept this. His quill pen is an eagle feather because their mythos is that they help maintain the order of the universe and shit. I never talked about how this relates to order. It's okay. I wrote all of that up for my patrons over on Patreon. Join us there for tea and crumpets and sneak peeks at the companion book, page by page. Doopy doopy doom 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 da doom doop 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 boop boop doop doop bloop blah 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 blah. And here he is. I hope you like him. And I'll see you next week with Phosphorus. Stay healthy, learn stuff. Thanks for watching.
You look so surprised because she kissed him.
Actually, I always figured that he'd, like, lain awake in bed, worried about this, and thinking, God, if I was in charge of the universe, it would be something like their brother and sister, so I don't have to worry about it. So that's the face of someone going, holy shit. Am I in charge of the universe?